Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Unleashed Soup. I'm really excited to have our guest on today, Mr. Donald Pelles. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good, Dexter.
Good. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited to dive into your work as a hypnotherapist and knowing that you got your start, your background is being a professor. You have a PhD in math and you switched over to hypnotherapy and helping people with their transformations. Tell us a little about that and how you got started.
The mathematics was a long time ago. I got my PhD started as a math professor in 1969. And then I did that for 6 years. Midway through then, I realized I really didn't like academics and I wasn't that interested in math as a profession anymore. And then I eventually found my way into software development. I did that for 28 years. And it was a good living. It was engaging at times. I can't say I loved it. And then about 20 years ago, I had an experience that moved me in the direction of hypnosis and hypnotherapy. Turn this off. Wait a minute. And so then I ended up taking a hypnotherapy class, and I absolutely loved it. And I thought, well, here's my next career. I was 62 years old. And then, basically I started my practice and after a couple of years dropped my day job.
Don, tell us a little bit about that experience and what exactly moved you.
Well, one day I typed in hypnosis into a browser. And I can't really quite tell you why I did that. I was just bored and curious. And I ended up on this website, Wendy.com, Wendy with an I. Wendy Friesen, whom I later met in person. We had lunch together. But Wendy Friesen is, or I don't know if she's still active. She was a celebrity hypnotist, and she had a website with all kinds of downloads and recordings and CDs. We had CDs back then. Books. We had books back then. And so I was curious. I downloaded what she called an introductory trance. It was a recording, and I listened to it, and within 15 minutes, I had stopped a habit
Mm.
that I've been unable to break for over 60 years. I'd been cracking my knuckles since I was 11. I'd never been able to stop. And I haven't cracked my knuckles since. And I thought, wow, what else can we do with this? So I started looking into hypnosis.
Wow, that's so interesting. So, when you're starting with something that is so intrinsic almost to who you are, like cracking your knuckles, because at some point that becomes so subconscious, how do
Yeah.
you take a act like that and move that into helping people transformatively become better individuals, help them behaviorally, help them with their maybe their individual psychoses?
Well, what she did in that recording, she said she takes you into trance, and then she says, whenever you see something red, yeah. Well, no, she said, what did she say? She wasn't talking about knuckle cracking. She just said, whenever you see something red, and then I filled in the blank. So I said to myself, whenever I see something red, I'll feel a warm, healing glow on my fingers, and I won't have any need to crack my knuckles.
Mm.
And that was all. And then for a while, whenever I felt like cracking them, I'd look around for something red. And after a few weeks, the impulse went away, and I didn't even think about it anymore. So, so how does that translate? Well, I do a lot of things. I mean, that's called a trigger or a cue, and I might do a little bit of that. But I do a lot of things. So the question was, how do you help people with habits they don't like?
Right.
For one thing, it depends on the habit. It's definitely, and that's why I always ask my clients, multiple times, what are you experiencing? So people come in and say, "Oh, I have generalized anxiety," and I say, well, I don't say I don't care about that, but I'll say, what does that really mean? What are you experiencing? Do you worry? Do you feel uncomfortable in certain situations? Do you have problems driving over bridges, getting in elevators? Do you have problems flying? Do you have, is it hard for you to get up and speak in public, or do you have test anxiety? See, a lot of different things. So once I know what the person is actually experiencing, then we can go to work. I guess the main thing that I use is called core transformation, which is a form of parts therapy. So the idea is there's a part of you that wants to smoke. It's not all of you. It's not even all of you all the time, but there's a part of you. And the idea of core transformation is these parts, these internal parts, have positive intentions. A lot of times they split off from the person when they were really young. They developed at a very young age, often in response to whatever was going on at the time. So often as solutions, right? So what was a solution when you were 5 years old continues. You know, it's like it's split off, it takes on a life of its own, and it can affect your life in various ways. So at a certain point, I say, so a 5-year-old has been in charge of whole aspects of your life. So we talk to the part. We say, what do you want? The part says, well, I want to feel good. Okay. Let the part experience what that would be like, and then you ask the part. The part is usually concentrated in some part of your body. Maybe it's in your chest or your mouth or something. You ask the part, when you feel good, when you already have that, then what do you want through that that's even deeper or more important? Well, I want to be safe or something. You keep iterating that, and eventually you get to what we call a core state, which is a high level existential or spiritual state if you're inclined that way. It's a state of being on the order of peace, oneness, wholeness. Love is a common one, but it'll be different for everybody. For every part, different parts might have different core states. And then you basically apply that back to the part. So when you are immersed in love, ask the part. Go back to, I might say, when you go back to a time when you wanted that cigarette, when you wanted to smoke, but now with the part just totally immersed in love as its state of being, and notice how it's different. So that's one of the things I do. I also do something called wholeness work, which is a little different, but it kind of ends up in the same place. When you have that craving for a cigarette, where do you feel it? Oh, it's in my lungs, or it's in my throat, say. Okay. And then from that point on, it's purely in terms of physical sensations. We'll say, well, how big is it? What's the quality of it as a sensation? And then I ask, where is the I that's aware of that feeling in the throat? Where's the perceiving of it happening from? And there's a whole procedure. But when we come back, we find that the feeling is different.
Mm.
Whether it's anger or sadness or frustration or whatever it is, it's different. And then we might do several rounds, like maybe it starts out as anger and now it's sadness. We might work with that. Anyhow, those are a couple things I do with habits.
Mm. No, Don, I really want to dive into this core state and you taking people through the trance. Can you walk me through a little bit what that trance initially looks like and what exactly does it mean to be in a trance state?
Well, hypnosis is an altered state. And actually, we go in and out of, we think of it as a trance state. We go in and out of trance all the time. for instance, like do you read much, Dexter?
all the time.
So have you ever been really deep into a book and maybe somebody comes up and speaks to you and at first you don't even notice them? Has that ever happened?
Yes.
Well, that's a trance. You're experiencing the descriptions in the book. With fiction, you're involved with the characters, you're involved with the plot. You might be emotionally involved, and you're shutting everything else out. See, that's an example. But with hypnosis, we're deliberately evoking a trance state in somebody, and then we're utilizing that. In a trance state, you're very suggestible, right? Which is why you can enjoy the book. But we're utilizing that to get the changes we want. Core transformation, well, we don't start out with a trance, but the person usually ends up in a trance, sometimes a very deep state of trance. And so it just kind of flows out of the process. And once we get to the core state, of course, that's a profound trance. If you just immerse in peace as your state of being, you could say your identity. The core state really becomes, in a sense, the person's identity.
You
In
know,
fact, core transformation was originally called the identity process. It was developed by Connie Ray Andreas, and I've been using it for almost 20 years.
Don, so when you're talking about this intense, deep sensation, this feeling of peace, the core of who we are, how long does that last? Is that something that people carry with them continuously, or as you said earlier, do you come in and out of this deep state relaxation?
I think it depends on the person. The intention is to carry it permanently. I don't know if everybody does that from one session, but what I say to the client is this is a powerful resource for you. And the more you can access that state of being, peace, just the better everything is going to be for you. So, but whether we do everything we can to kind of embed that in the person's consciousness or even unconsciousness, it makes a difference. People experience changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that being said, and it is kind of challenging to carry that energy on throughout your day, like especially here in today's world, what advice would you give to somebody who might have a stressful job and or might have a stressful home life and they want to be able to carry this peace with them continuously?
Well, I teach all my clients self-hypnosis and ask them to do it several times, just like a 3-minute exercise. And I ask them to do it several times a day. That in itself changes people. They tend to become calmer, more grounded, able. I mean, with the word stress has really two meanings. One is something that occurs, something that stresses you, and then it's also what you feel, right? Well, we may or may not be able to control the stressor, the thing that stress. I mean, sometimes you can avoid them, and actually, sometimes we can actually change your reactions. So what used to be a stressor is not, and that's part of what we do. But and then the other thing is your reactions to it. That we can definitely address, and the self hypnosis is kind of the beginning of that. Just you can think of it as like meditation. You're just doing it like several times a day, and people change. So I tell this story about pretty much all my clients about this woman, young woman I worked with. She was Chinese from China, student at University of Maryland, and she said she was very anxious, First of all, she's in this strange country speaking English most of the time. She's anxious about her schoolwork. I think she was under a lot of pressure. She had an American boyfriend. She was anxious about him. And she said there were mice running around in the air conditioner in her dorm room,
Mm.
and they wouldn't do anything about it. So I taught her self-hypnosis. I call it the zone for obvious reasons. And I asked her to start doing it several times a day. She comes back a week later, and I say, "So, how's it going?" She says, "Well, I've been having these bouts of happiness for no apparent reason." Right, happiness attacks, right? And then she says, I said, "That's nice." She says, "Yeah." And then she says, "And the mice are gone too." Well, there was a change just from doing that. And of course, we do a lot more, but that's a start.
Can you give an example of how someone can get, or a brief example of how someone can quickly put themselves into the zone? Because when we talk about doing self hypnosis and even meditation multiple times throughout the day, I feel that people get, the term is paralysis by analysis. They think that you say 7 times, they need to sit down for 30, 40 minutes each time. So, can you give just a really brief example of how one can
Sure.
accomplish?
Well, the whole thing that I do with clients, it's on my YouTube channel, Hypnosis Silver Spring, all run together. Hypnosis Silver Spring is called the zone. But basically the idea is if I can get you to feel what it's like to be in an altered state, to be hypnotized, if I can get you to feel that, then you are in an altered state. So that basically the main instruction is go inside your body. You can do it. Close your eyes, Dexter. Just go inside your body and occupy all the space inside. Every place from the top of your head down to your toes, all the way to your fingertips. I'll just give you a moment to do that. Just from this, just tell me how that feels. How do you feel when you do that?
Feels great. It reminds me of the deep meditations that I do.
Yeah, yeah. So actually how does it feel? Does it feel tingly? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel light?
It feels more tingly. Um,
Uh-huh.
it feels honestly like, usually when I'm meditating, I'm sitting not in this chair, and I'm
Uh-huh.
sitting somewhere a little bit else. So it almost feels like the energy is trying to move through. But since I'm sitting in this
Yeah. Yeah.
non-familiar position area, a little stagnant.
So that's the start of it. You can open your eyes. Yeah. That's basically that's the basic instruction.
Mhm.
And then, I can show you, basically I might suggest that you can take yourself deeper and you can go into it more, and people do. And then we can hook that to a cue or a trigger that whenever you say to yourself deeper, you'll just feel yourself going deeper. That's basically what I do. It's really very simple. But the idea is if I can get you to feel what it's like to be hypnotized, then you are you are hypnotized.
Don,
It's a
how do
very
you?
somatic thing. I'm not telling you to quiet your mind. I'm not telling you to stop your thoughts or your monkey mind, whatever that is. I'm not. It's just a very simple kind of somatic feeling thing.
Yeah, I love that so much because a lot of times when people think about meditation, their first thought is, I can't stop thinking. Why do you think a lot of people have this almost innate pushback when it comes to meditation and hypnosis?
Well, I don't know about hypnosis because I've only found one or two people that couldn't do it,
Oh, interesting.
and I think they really didn't want to. I think, well, this idea that you're going to stop thinking, well, you might because you're going inside and you're paying more attention just to to that feeling. But I never say stop. Well, the closest I come to that is I usually start out by saying close your eyes and defocus your mind so you're not thinking about anything in particular. But I didn't say that to you, but so I'm not telling you to quiet your mind. Most, at least I think most meditation protocols don't tell you how to do that. They just say quiet your mind. I don't even go there. I just say defocus so you're not thinking about anything in particular, and now take yourself inside and occupy all the space inside your body. And I might elaborate that a little bit, but it's on my YouTube channel. Go
Mm.
go there and check.
That's so magical. I want to touch on something that you briefly said a moment ago about the two individuals who probably just didn't want to go into hypnosis. Can you elaborate on the importance of allowing yourself to go into a deep state?
Yeah, well, I think there might need to be some safety.
Mhm.
And thinking about it, I work only now on over Zoom. I got rid of my office 2 years ago because I wasn't using it. So for some people, that actually might feel safer.
Mhm.
There's nobody there directly, it's not another person in their space. I don't know. So, but sometimes people do have a lot of trouble when there's a lot of noise going on. And I have a way of dealing with that.
Mhm.
So Sunday there's this organization we have here called Pathways. They put out a magazine. This is the DC area. So I was at their expo in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. And sometimes I do demonstrations there with people, but it's really noisy, just lots of decibels. So in a way, I start out by calling your attention to that.
Mhm.
I'll say, just close your eyes and be aware of everything you can hear simultaneously. And now, defocus your mind and occupy all the space inside your body. And somehow that diffuses that noise, that interference.
Mhm.
But I mean, altered states, I gave the example of reading, but it's something we all do, we all have. So, in a way, when I teach self hypnosis, I'm just kind of showing you a capability you've always had that you might not have been aware of.
Yeah. You have a lot of
You probably
people.
were when you were a kid. You might not have been aware it's anything special. I mean, some say that children are always hypnotized until they're 8 or 9 years old. But, a kid pretending like, okay, we're having a tea party and they'll serve you tea and cookies and of course they know it's pretend. But on the other hand, it seems very real to them. They're in that state, right? At least a lot of kids. And they're completely into the role, I don't I'd rather have a green cookie. Do you have any of those? Oh, yes, we have some of those. Here, let me bring you one. Right?
Yeah, yeah, I love that so much. It is funny because like a lot of people talk about this flow state, this focus state, and when you're exercising, same thing happens. You get hyper
Yeah.
focused when you're drawing or art or anything that's right brain oriented. Usually with creativity, we get hyper focused. Why would you say, or why do you think we often detach ourselves or forget about that as we get older?
I don't know. It's a good question. There are lots of different trances. There's the working out trance. There's this I call when I teach people, I call it the zone for a good reason. I mean, for an athlete, right? It's the zone is, when all your shots are going in, when even your mistakes are working out, and you're not really even thinking about it. It's just flowing, it's just happening. That's definitely a trance. And when I work with athletes, I want them to be able to go there at will. There's you know, a performer, a musician, that's a trance. And they're negative trances. There are anger trances. There are sadness trances. A teacher of mine once said, he probably said it more than once, when they come into your office, they're in trance, and your job, my job, is to find them a better trance.
Mm,
Yeah.
interesting. I never heard of it that way. That's so fascinating. But hey, Don, we only have a few minutes left. Is there anything you'd like to leave with the audience before we go?
Well, I'd like to let people know how they can contact me. Can I do that?
Yes, please.
So when I work with people, I like to do a consultation first. And the way, so that the link is easy to remember, it's meetwithdon.me. You might have to put an HTTP in front of it, but meetwithdon.me. You go there and you can see my calendar and find a time that fits you, and then we'll talk and
Well,
see if this is something you want or not.
that's so wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Don, and thank you all for coming on. We'll have the information to all of his links and contacts in the link below, right below the description. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, comment with someone that needs to hear it. And as always, have a great and wonderful, blessed of your day.
Thank you, Dexter. It's really been a pleasure, and I really appreciate you having me on your show.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. Enjoy yourselves, everyone. Bye.